what do you make of all the news that's come out of the G7?
Well, the G7 was quite a disaster, wasn't it? I think this brings us quite close to what we had thought we would avoid, which is a trade war, because previously a lot of these comments were quite rhetoric. Nothing had translated into action, but we've seen, for example, the Canadians lashing back and Trump taking that as a provocation. So it's only set to get worse, I think.
Okay, Pamela, Nancy's got a question for you. Nancy, come on in.
Hi there, Pamela. It is, of course, also a busy week for central bankers who continue to keep an eye on inflationary pressures. Traditionally, we think of a breakdown of trade ties and further tariffs as having an inflationary effect. Do you think that could be the case as a result of what we saw at the G7?
Okay, we've got a little bit of an audio issue here, Pamela, but you were talking about the threat of a trade war and how we're getting closer to that. Essentially paraphrasing some of what Nancy had to say, what happens next? I mean, on Friday we are expected to get more detail on the tariffs. Do you think that these will be toned back or ramped up as a result of what's happened over the course of the weekend? I
think it's hard to say, but at this point, well, we have been calculating that a trade war was not really our core scenario because a lot of the responses have been measured and calculated and quite, reasonable. But I think given that Canada's got quite a good strategy around trying to attack Trump's bases, so for example, they have said that they will slap tariffs on orange juice, which comes from Florida. They've slapped, chocolate, which comes from, Pennsylvania. A lot of these things are swing states in the U.S., and I think it will hit Trump's base. So in that sense, it might not work very well for Trump. So I think that hopefully would be the strategy going forward.
I'm curious, if we switch back to this region again and the summit that's on, assuming that we get a kind of a positive agreement and positive mood and messaging out of the next 2 days, what economies do you see benefiting in the short term from that? Is South Korea, Japan, China? Where would you see that kind of playing out? Not just in terms of kind of the market direction, but just actually on the ground. Which ones do you think will do well?
For sure, South Korea would benefit in terms of their affiliation to North Korea, in terms of security of the region. But I would say that it's good for the whole region. North Korea does provide some kind of instability. So if you remember, 6 months ago, there was almost a brink of a would this be a third world war because there were missiles flying across Japan and so on. It would be good for the region, but from the economic point of view, North Korea is still a very small economy. It's not going to make any material impact on many of the exporting-led economies in Asia.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.